I was 40 years old when I got sick the first time, and when I first went to the doctor diagnosed me as having major depressive disorder as well as anxiety disorder and gave me medication. After 4 weeks on that medication, I bridged into psychosis and was immediately put into a psychiatric hospital. For 24 days, they doused me with more medications, and on the 25th day, they came to me and said, the medication is not helping. You're not getting any better than you were when you first walked in here. We'd like to start with a new treatment option, and when they said electroconvulsive therapy, better known as shock therapy, my family and I were petrified. Petrified, and more petrified, not so much, believe it or not so much about the treatment itself, but petrified of the stigma that surrounds ECT. And I was thinking, who's going to ever let their kids come in my house if they know that my children's mother had ECT? And then one very empathetic nurse said to me, you're not getting any better, you need to do something. And she said, it can be your secret. So I had ECT, and it became my silver bullet. And I went on to go back. I was at the time teaching in a little small community college, went back to work, didn't think about it anymore. I was still taking medication, but the EC treatments were done. 4 years later, depression brought me to my knees again, and went back into the hospital, this time for 24 days, more ECT treatment. And I'd like to say that I was done with all this ECT, and I was not, because depression brought me to my knees with psychotic features, suicidal ideation, 4 different times. Today I stand in front of you with 100 days in psychiatric wards and over 50 shock treatment, but I'm happy to tell you that it's been 17 years since I've been sick, and I've been able to go out and talk about what it is and what EC does. And my firm belief is that we need to rebrand ECT, because I explain to people it's the defibrillator of the brain. When our heart stops, what do? They shock it. Well, when the neurons in my brain are not working properly, they need to reboot them so that I can get better again. So I'd like to talk about what exactly the effects I've had. I've had some major effects at different times during the process. The first was the short-term memory loss. The short-term memory while I am in the treatment series is horrific, I'm not going to lie, all right? There were times when I would take my children and drop them off at baseball and not remember that I dropped a child off at baseball and he needed to be picked up. There were times when I remember driving and being disoriented. First of all, I can't believe you let me drive the day after ECT, okay? Because I'm so disconnected that I remember going and driving somewhere and being disoriented in a place I had driven a lot of times and I couldn't remember where I was and how do I get back home again. So short-term memory definitely is impacted. However, all my short-term memory did return. And as a speaker and also as a coach, I remember things, a lot of good things. When I'm in front of a group of 50 people and they go around one time and I write their names down, I can recall their names and use their names within my presentation. So my short-term memory does return, but it is definitely impacted and does not come back for about, really fully come back for 3 to 4 weeks after the series is done. Word difficulties. My son, my middle son, he's wonderful when he says to me, Mom, you're not making any sense. And I'll say, what do you mean? He goes, your words are not in the right order in your sentences. But then he'll say to me, Mom, you must be coming back because your sentences are in the right order now. So I do have word difficulty grabbing words. The long-term memory loss, I absolutely have some. However, I'm here in the land of the living to talk about it because I don't believe without ECT I'd still be alive. And so my children will say, Mom, remember when? And I'll say, give me some more information, and they'll give me more, and I still can't recall what it is that they've said. But as they say, the way I say, but you're here, Mom, to still talk to us, and we'll take the long-term memory loss. Concentration issues happen. I can't seem to hold, after I've had ECT, I have a very hard time holding what people have said to me. I can't concentrate long enough to really hold a sentence for me to figure it out. And I'm constantly asking people for clarity in what they're telling me so that I can comprehend what they're saying. So there are definitely concentration issues. But again, those clear up when the series are over. And the last thing is the one that was most frightening for me. After my third series of ECT, there was a period where I became manic, and I had never had mania before, and my family was so happy that I wasn't depressed and ready to take my own life that they didn't know what was going on until my secretary came to my husband and said, she is making radically poor decisions in her business. She's not depressed, but I don't know what's going on with her because she's not making good decisions. And I was spending money in my business that I didn't really have to spend. As soon as we went back to the doctors, and of course I crashed after being manic for probably about 6 weeks. I crashed and ended up back in the hospital and had more ECT because I went from being up here to down here, and they needed to level me again. But again, the decision-making came back once mania left. So there are some cognitive effects that you need to know about. Now, the treatment, ECT treatment then versus now. I speak to patients that have ECT on a weekly basis. They'll call. They get my name from a doctor who will give them my name to speak to them or their family members. And I know my longest treatment series was 15 treatments. And today when I talk to men and women that are having ECT, they're telling me that the least amount they have is 15, and the most they're having is 30. And some are having maintenance ECT as well. So that has changed, and I don't know if the intensity is changing or what is, but people are having longer series of ECT, it appears, compared to what I had. I had both bilateral and unilateral ECT. I don't remember which series of ECT it happened in, but both bilateral and unilateral produced some short-term memory loss. Oh gosh. How has it impacted my life? You know, I really don't believe I'd be here if it weren't for ECT, because the depths of the depression, the hopelessness, the thought, the loss, the touch of reality, thinking we're going to be bag people and my kids have no food to eat in their mouth, so I stop eating. All of those things were part of the beast. That's what I call my depression. The suicidal ideation was relentless for me on all 4 occasions that I was brought to my knees. I remember being in the hospital, and I remember looking for a way to take my own life in the hospital. And I remember one time taking a plastic garbage bag liner and trying to suffocate myself in the room. I remember walking up and thinking, if I can just break that picture frame, I can cut my wrists. It was relentless, but ECT pulled me away from that and allowed me to recognize that life is to be lived. And that's what I do today. I'm in the land of the living. And I am a person who believes that everything happens for a reason, and that for everything that happens to us, good can come from it. And so today I am out there from the rooftops telling people that ECT is not only a viable treatment, it has a very high efficacy, and it gives us our life back. In between ECT series, I've gone back to graduate school at Fordham University to receive another degree. I have a very successful business called Kivler Communications that I never thought I would have at this age or after so much that I've been through. But I do, because ECT has given me back my life. Now, this is what I hear from patients that I've talked to. They said, my doctor wants me to have a complete remission of my symptoms. How many of you want that? Sure, we all want that. Patients want to get back to work, life, and community. And the longer they have short-term memory loss, the harder it is for them to get back to normalcy. So just think about the length of treatments and also what the goal of the patient is. The patient is to live life again. And sometimes when I leave the hospital, I'm not without symptoms. There are still some symptoms. At least I don't have suicidal ideation, but I still am not sleeping that great. I'm still not eating correctly. I'm still not engaging in life, but I do have a life. So I want you to think about how long the series are. Ongoing recovery. I often tell people that sustained recovery is a process. I work on recovery 7 days a week. Why? Because I've made a personal commitment to wellness. ECT is part of that recovery process. Medication is part of the process. But exercise is so much part of what I do on a regular basis. Why? Because I know that exercise gives me just the added edge that I need. I also heavily, I journal. Every day I journal. Every day I write down 5 things I'm grateful for the day before. Why? Because I want to live in a place that puts positive energy into my life rather than all the negative that I've seen. But it's a process. Now, the reason I am here today and the reason that I'm living is because of those 3 children, Russell, Kimberly, and Brandon. Those kids wanted me to be a grandmother someday. And today I'm a grandmother of 7, 6 little boys and 1 princess. And we all say, thanks to each of you, my grandchildren have a grandma. Thank you.